So first item is budget overview. The Finance Director will present an overview of the 2027 budget. The city's estimated assessed valuation, 3.9% from 133,000, no, that's a million, ain't it?
Yep.
$220,036 to 138,423,446 estimated. Assuming a flat mill levy rate, this would generate $218,254. The city's current mill levy is 41.917. The revenue neutral rate is 40.341. And I think Beth is going to explain all of that in this briefing.
Yep, I am, as soon as Diana gives me permission. Okay. So this is just kind of a summary of what you just said. The mill levy estimate right now is at $138,423,846, which is 3.9% increase. The R&R is 40.341. I'm not recommending that we stay revenue neutral. We would be using up reserves significantly. This is 3.9%, as the mayor and I were discussing earlier. The state, the CPI, Midwest CPI is 4.2%, so this is under a CPI increase. This year in the legislation, they proposed a bill that would change the budgeting process to include CPI, so you would be able to, cities and municipalities would be able to have revenue neutral plus the CPI percentage and not have to go through the process of having the hearing and raising the mill levy. So it was vetoed. There were other pieces of the bill that I think were not palatable because there was a piece that would require a vote, putting something on the ballot, which is not feasible in the budget timeline that we currently have. That would have to be significantly revised, considering we don't get numbers till June and we're supposed to pass our budget no later than September 20th. So I think that's part of the reason, but I think that's coming. It was discussed the year before. We saw it I think it was in the House, and maybe it went into the Senate, vetoed, but I think probably it'll come back again with some revisions and may possibly be in place next year. So keeping that in mind, we would then be looking at R&R plus CPI. We would be under that if that were the case this year. So just a little background on that. This is just kind of a historical look at our mill levy and breakdown between the different funds. So we did stay revenue neutral a couple years, and then we had a big jump when we brought the fire department in. But that jump it just eliminated Fire District 1, and we took on that mill levy. So it wasn't really a change for taxpayers.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that they were paying that money anyway.
Correct. Yes.
Instead of paying it to the district. So that's not that we came in and did this big, huge jump.
No, tax dollars just went from one entity to another.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to be sure people understand that.
Yes. So, and you'll see, the mill levy always varies between the different funds a little bit. You'll see, if you look at 26, you'll see that one that's 0.881, and that is our debt service fund. Because of our aquatic center coming in at lower cost than we had anticipated, any remaining funds for capital projects get transferred into debt service to offset the debt on projects like that. So that kind of helped us out this year. You'll notice next year it's going back up because we'll have used that to help pay off bonds this year. So that gave us a little leeway last year in the general fund. This year we're going to see it kind of even back out again because it's got to go back to debt service. And you'll notice the fire department, that is 9.451 mils. We bumped that up a little bit just because we really want to try to get that equipment reserve fund started. Delaware Township levies 9 mills, so that's a little bit of an increase that the city would take on. That's not set in stone yet. This is still a working document. There are things that come up and we'll need to kind of move numbers around sometimes. But that was just something I feel like everybody seemed to be on board with, wanting to get that equipment reserve fund going if we want to purchase large items. And none of the fire department equipment is cheap, so we're going to need something like that in the future. Sorry, Joe. He'd agree with me. These are just some updates from the work session that we had in May. I went ahead and put up what our fund balance was and what our mill levy was. That was in my last presentation. And just to kind of give you an idea of, again, the history of our mill levy. And then we did want to keep it flat, so there were some changes that we needed to make. And we needed to increase a couple of the transfers because our special highway fund, as I mentioned in May, the fuel tax is not growing in line with the expenses in that fund. We pay salaries out of there, and it's not growing at all, frankly. I mean, it was about the same amount that it was last year, and it was down from the previous year. So we needed to increase the transfer from the general fund to help supplement that fund. And then we also needed to transfer more to special parks. That is where our aquatic center is, and we knew up front revenues were not going to support that department. That is a quality of life thing, so we have to do a transfer from the general fund to help offset the costs for that, running that aquatic center. So we are still looking. Last year was a weird year because obviously we opened late with the pool. We're hoping it's looking good, but I'm cautiously optimistic that it might be.
Yeah, we're doing better because remember last year we kind of overstaffed it while we were getting our feet under us. So we kind of looked at it, and it looks like every pay period we're a couple thousand less than we were last year, and that's with giving all the lifeguards a 25-cent raise. The other thing that I'll say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I think when we looked at the revenues and expenses a week or so ago, we were about breaking even because the early part of the year is when everyone's buying their season passes and you've only done a couple of pay periods. But as that continues, no one's going to buy a season pass in late July, but you still have to pay those lifeguards. But if we would have shut it down last week, we would have broken even.
Yeah.
But yeah, every subsequent pay period, it will go a little bit further down. But people will be paying daily passes and concessions and things like that.
If you had shut it down last week, the people who bought the pass would have been mad.
Yeah,
we probably
like I
would
said,
have been in refund.
I say that tongue in cheek, but we were breaking even for a few weeks because everyone was buying those season passes at the beginning of the year. So, yep.
And revenues are looking good. We projected 130,000. We're at about 90,000 right now. So I'm hopeful that we're going to maybe even exceed that a little bit, and I'll make adjustments in the budget. That's not a tax levy fund, so it's not going to really affect the tax levy, although we could reduce that transfer then. So.
You have a new military class coming in, which they'll come into the community and they'll probably go to the pool without
Right.
passes, so they'll be generating revenue for the pool.
Yeah. So just keep going to the pool. Pray for hot weather. So the other thing I did once open enrollment was over, I adjusted health insurance costs to actual, or as actual as they could be. We always have changes throughout the year. We actually probably saved about 20,000, so that kind of helped us in
because
the general
people
fund.
changed their plans.
Yeah,
and
people
everything.
went from family to single, or
dropped it all
together. So that helped.
We had people drop it,
We had people drop it.
just couldn't afford it.
Yeah. They had a better deal with their spouse, I think.
Okay.
So, yep. So, and then the 2027 capital and supplemental requests. Those are the fire department, again, that's kind of built into that additional amount above the 9 mils to cover. I mean, the hose replacement, that's not a huge impact on their budget. I think we could probably handle that within the base budget even if we needed to. And the assistant fire chief position, we pushed it back to November. That's the cost for roughly for 2 months worth of having an assistant fire chief. And that's kind of one of those things that we'll just look at as the year goes on. And once 26 ends and then we get into 27, we'll kind of assess whether that's feasible or not. And then again, the fire equipment reserve fund is another thing we'll just kind of assess whether it's feasible, how much we can do based on fund balance. I don't want that fund to get too low in reserves because, again, it's a tax levy fund. We're going to pay for it the next year. So.
I know you said this, but what was the increase percent with insurance?
29%.
It was an average of 29%.
And I think
Yeah.
had everyone stayed on their current plan, not modified their plan, not modified their coverage, it would have been around $100,000.
Yeah.
But there were a handful of people who switched their plan, went on their spouse's plan or whatever. So.
And then wastewater is another. The CNS, again, it's an enterprise fund, so it should fund itself. Again, we're spending big money this year on the SCADA replacement, and we have the jetvac truck that we have a lease purchase for. So those items are in there, but they're also, we're going to be assessing that, whether it's feasible to handle both of those or if we need to put one off as the
With
year
their
goes on.
funds.
So
Not the general fund.
not the general fund. Yeah, this is.
Okay, hey, can you, like, just refresh the council on, like, what is the reserve that you want to keep?
The reserve,
City? Like, so we have a good idea of what the reserve is.
so it's typically like 20%, 17 to 20% of expenses. I usually look at like the first quarter of expenses and kind of gauge it on that. How much did we spend the first quarter? And that's about what our reserve should be. So, and the next couple slides will show you projected. And these are really, really projected because the beginning balance is at the end of 26. So
Yes, perform way ahead of time.
that's a long way to project.
Yeah.
But based on what we're budgeting, and keep in mind, budget does not mean spending. So we can budget it, we don't necessarily spend it. So general fund, 1.7, I like to keep it 1.7, 1.8. So I think I'm comfortable with that. Library, we spent a lot of money out of there this year. Terry's not going to spend any money next year. So they're okay with that amount. Debt service is a funny one because we know our expenses. We know what our debt payments are every year. We don't have to keep a lot in there because it's mostly funded by property tax. So when that tax payment comes in, our first interest payment is not due till March 1. That's when we pay. So you don't have to keep a real big fund balance in there unless you know of something that you're going to be doing, like issuing debt, and you're going to have other expenses with it. But typically when you issue debt, you cover the cost of those expenses too with
Are
that
there
debt.
any of those that are ending anytime soon?
There's one, but it's like $45,000 payment right now that ends in 2028. So
Is
I
that
should have
for-
brought that up.
Is that for the whole year or just?
Yeah, so with that, you have an interest payment, you have 2 interest payments a year, and ours happen to all fall on March 1 and then September 1. And then you also have a principal payment due every year that's on September 1. So, yeah, that's the $45,000. It'd be a little bit of interest on top of that. I can't remember what the total interest is. It's not much. So, because I was like, oh, we got one falling down. Yeah, I think I do further on.
Yeah.
And then we have some wastewater debt that's going to fall off in another year or two. So, but that is wastewater, not debt service.
Right.
So, fire department, that one, I don't love the ending balance on that one. I feel like it should be a little bit higher. But again, we haven't really had a normal year. Last year was our first year, and there were a lot of startup costs that came into play. You know, we needed computers, we needed the doors and key fobs and
Had a
all
generator
the
go
fun
out
stuff,
that was-
you know, like all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So it's hard to project really what we're going to, you know, I still don't know what a true year looks like for them without all that extra stuff to get started. So hopefully that's going to come in a little bit higher. And then, where did my other one go? Did I-
So does the ending balance, does that roll into like the equipment fund, or what does the ending balance roll into?
That's just in that fund. So as we
I
get
know.
toward the end of the year, we would do a transfer to another fund
Okay.
that would be the fire equipment reserve fund.
Okay.
We've got a lot of funds, so,
You could almost just think of ending balance as reserves.
yes.
One and the
that's
same
really the
reserves.
reserves. That's
And-
really
But
what
I
the reserve
think
is.
you have to transfer it, don't you? I mean,
If you want to,
like an equipment,
yes.
okay.
If you
I
want
got
to allot it for equipment replacement,
Yeah,
you need to move it.
And so to use really like rough numbers in the fire fund, like say if we're comfortable with $250,000 at the end of the year in 2027, then we would transfer $38,000 to an
Yeah.
equipment
Yeah.
replacement.
no, I got you.
Yeah.
There'd
So
be
that's
some
what we'll
to
be
the
looking at.
Equipment fund, okay.
And I think right now, I'm not budgeting anything. Like I'm not, because if you budget it, then you have to put it in both funds, and it'll affect mill levy again. So what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll just do, we'll do an amended budget for that at the end of the year. We do that every once in a while. So we'll look at it then. And that'd be a good time for you all to see that too, so that you can see, hey, this is where we stand. Here's what we're projecting and estimating that we could move, and then you could approve that amended budget, and we could transfer it into that fund. We're not going to spend it the first year anyway, so
Yeah.
we hope we're not going to spend it. So those are the tax levy funds. Those are the ones. The only other fund, and I didn't put it on here, is again the special parks, just because we have the aquatic center in there now. We've got salaries. So, and special highway. Special highway, I think next year, if it's still struggling and fuel tax isn't going anywhere, we're going to look at moving some of the salaries out of that fund into the general fund. So then looking at our timeline, the first thing that'll happen is I need to let the county clerk know that we are planning to not go revenue neutral, because she then has to send out mailers to all the taxpayers, letting them know. So as long as everybody is on board, and I will preface this with saying, I'll notify her that we're staying flat. We're doing a flat mill levy. Keep in mind, we can publish a flat mill levy, and you can always approve one that's a budget that's under the mill levy that we publish. You can't do it if it's over. But if suddenly, and I don't anticipate this happening, but sales tax just took off and you wanted to lower it because of that, we could still approve a budget the night we approve the budget at a lower mill levy. So publishing it does not necessarily mean you're stuck with that number. So the only other time, if we needed to raise it, we would have to start the process over again. We'd have to republish, have another hearing, and then approve it. So then I'm going to probably notify her sooner than July 1, because the sooner she gets the numbers, the easier it is for her. She has limited time to get all those numbers together. And then I'll publish the notice for a public hearing around the beginning of August. We have to allow 10 business days. I like to do it a little sooner because the paper has been known. One year I submitted it and it was like an inch and this is a full sheet of paper with numbers, and they published it in like a little box this size. So I republished it because nobody could even see what it was. And then the 20th of August is the first day you can approve budgets. It's the 20th of August through the 20th of September. You have to approve budgets in between that time frame. So I just picked the first day. That gives us, gives you time to discuss it. If there's a public hearing and you want to, push it back a little bit, we've got a couple more council meetings that you have available in that time frame. This is the debt. So here's all our GO bonds that we have out there, and just kind of a description of what we issued the debt for and the outstanding principal as of January 1. So all of those, the ones that are highlighted, those are wastewater. That's wastewater debt, so we pay for that out of the wastewater fund. And then I have a whole payment schedule. I'd be happy to share that if anybody really wants to look at it. That shows each payment, all the interest payments. It's also in our state budget form that we submit to the state. It shows 2 years worth of those payments and the interest on them. So. Any questions on that? And then, okay, yeah, here are the non-tax levy funds, that just kind of a projection for them. Those, a lot of them, when I budget them close down to zero, because then it just eliminates us having to amend the budget if something comes up and we need to spend it out of there. Most of those are fairly healthy. Again, special highway, not so great. And special parks is okay because of that transfer. So. Just more informational. Any questions on that? It's a lot of numbers, I know.
So the ending balances are low by design.
The ending balances, they might look a little bit lower than they are. Most of them are pretty on track. Like the 2 sales tax funds, I know what their payments are, so I don't budget any extra in there. But the other ones, yeah, we budget to get them lower, so they should be okay. Mayor's Christmas Tree Fund, we might need to do some fundraising on that.
Bump that up. Just kidding.
And again, this is if we spend everything out of it. This gives us budget authority. We don't necessarily, like the police equipment reserve, we might have something come up, we might not. So that may just sit there. We may not spend it. It just gives us the authority to if we need to. Same with equipment reserve. Any other questions?
I didn't see anything about the backhoe.
Oh, sorry.
The backhoe. That's
The backhoe is something that's come up.
That's still brand new, so we haven't gotten bids or done anything like that yet. I know like the very rough estimate was $140,000, and if we do a lease purchase, we could spread that over 3, 4, maybe 5 years. But yeah, since that's so brand new, that's not accounted for in here.
Yeah, and that we could fund. We could do a lease purchase out of the equipment reserve fund. There's enough in there to do that, so that wouldn't hit the general fund then.
Maybe a couple things that you guys had mentioned to me that I can kind of throw out there also. We included money if we do end up wanting to do the Ride LV thing. We included money for that in the non-departmental fund. There's still a lot of questions about what that would cost, but we do have some money penciled in there for that because I know a couple of you guys had asked me about that. And then I think one of you guys had asked me about raises or employee salaries or something along those lines. And I think we penciled in 3.2% for that for 2026. Is that
Yeah.
3.2 or 3.25?
3.15. I
Oh,
think is what we did.
3.15,
Yeah.
okay. So that's the number that, based on payroll, adding 3.15% in each department, so.
The other thing I forgot to mention, excuse me, the state mill levy is dropping off this year. So that is 1.5 mills. On a $350,000 house, that's $60. So that helps a little bit for taxpayers.
We're taking that into consideration. Also, I mean, when we coin this as taxes, property taxes and the mill levy, I mean, I'd really like you to go, hey, this is the CPI, this is revenue neutral, and this is revenue neutral plus CPI, and this is what we get. And I think we're actually under that.
We are.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good news. But, I mean, when you frame it, you should show that because you're showing the cost, right, of having to run the city.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and we're actually below that. So, I mean, I think that's a good news story for.
below the flat mill levy number.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you think about the consumer price index, which says all costs have gone up, and we're going below that to actually run the budget. That's a good news story for our taxpayers, in my view.
Might be a good, but is that gonna affect our reserves?
I think he's just talking about how to
How to present it.
present it to
Yeah.
people. So if CPI is
Yeah. It doesn't change
4.2%
I
and
mean,
keeping it
everybody
flat
knows costs have gone up.
is 3.9,
We inherit that as a city.
we're technically under the
We're actually
CPI.
going below what it costs us. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. CPI is 4.2. We're going 3.9.
Yeah.
So you're saying, when someone says, well, how come we didn't say revenue neutral? You can say,
Right.
well, we didn't take it to 4 point, whatever it is, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're under the
Below
inflationary rate recognized by the federal government. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think when you look back, 2021, the mill levy was 41.571. And by 2024, we had it down to 32.912. So that's, in that few years, that's quite a reduction in mills.
Yes.
Why did it drop that low?
The R&R came into play. That was,
Yeah.
and
The-
we had reserves.
There was one year our valuation went up like 10.9%. So
Yeah.
that year we felt like we were able to reduce it a little bit. Also, that was close to the time frame when like Quick Trip came to town, Harbor Freight came to town, and the more sales taxes we get, the more we can lower property taxes. So that kind of aligned with that in
Yeah.
that time period, I would say.
Yeah.
So we need more businesses. We need more businesses to generate sales tax.
We have some slated.
Yes.
Yes, the sooner
The better.
those people can build the shopping
Yeah.
center, the better, yes.
Gotta call
Monroe Manor will help too.
That
once we get
should.
those houses. Yeah, it should.
So
Yeah.
we spoke about that too. I think it'll be helpful when you think if there's 190 homes, all those people shopping in the Lansing and Leavenworth area, but also because there's that 10-year incentive. But even aside from the incentive, you guys think about franchise fees on Evergy or Kansas Gas. All your utilities charge a 5-cent surcharge that goes back to the city. The city would see that. The city would receive wastewater revenue from all of those. We'd get a couple $1,000s for each building permit on all of those. So I mean, there's even aside from that incentive for 10 or for 7 or 8 years. Yeah, I misspoke earlier. Sorry about that. Even aside from that incentive, I think it's going to be very beneficial for the community.
I agree.
Well, and if people that buy those houses don't live in the community now, they will go to Quick Trip, they will go
Yeah.
to Harbor Freight, they will spend
Yeah.
money in the community, which
Yeah.
will increase sales tax.
Absolutely.
Will alleviate more housing tax.
The other thing too, and this is going off a little bit on a tangent, but if you guys recall, I think some of you guys who have been here for a while when we had the retail recruitment firm, but also when the people were here for the comp plan, and they talked about how all of those companies are tracking people based on cell phones. So the more people you have in your town with cell phones, those companies can track that. So if you have 400 new residents, 500 new residents, that makes you more appealing to restaurants and other businesses. So. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Beth? Other than what we've had?
Nice job.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, Beth.
You
Thanks.
always do such a good job of
Thanks.
laying the information out for us, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
All right. There's nothing further from the group. We are adjourned. Appreciate it.